Chioma stood among hundreds of graduates at the University of Lagos. The air was full of laughter, music, and the sound of cameras clicking. Everyone around her was smiling, taking pictures, hugging their families. It was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. She held her rolled certificate close to her chest, her eyes scanning the crowd for the people she loved the most, her parents. Finally, she saw them standing a few feet away, her father, Chief Nwosu, her mother, and her younger brother. But something in their faces made her heart sink. There were no smiles, no pride, no joy. Only anger. Chief Nwosu walked up to her slowly, his eyes cold. "So this is it," he said, his deep voice cutting through the noise around them. "You've done your schooling. Time to come home. We've already packed your things." Chioma forced a small smile. "But Papa, I was hoping we'd celebrate." Before she could finish, her father's voice grew louder. "Celebrate what? All this money wasted on a girl's degree?" People nearby turned to look. The music and laughter seemed to fade. Chioma's mother looked down, avoiding her daughter's eyes. Her younger brother shifted uncomfortably beside them. Chioma's smile disappeared. The happiness she had felt a few minutes ago drained away. She tried to speak again, but her father had already turned away. "You think that paper will feed you? We've done enough," he said harshly, walking off toward the car. Her mother gave her a weak, helpless look before following him. No one said another word. Chioma stood frozen, clutching her certificate, her gown now heavy from the sudden drizzle that began to fall. She watched as the car engine started and drove away, leaving her standing in the middle of the celebration, alone. Around her, other graduates laughed and took selfies with their proud parents, but she could barely see through her tears. The rain fell harder. She didn't have an umbrella, so she tried to hide the paper under her gown, afraid it might get wet. Her hands trembled as she looked down at the certificate, the proof of years of struggle, sleepless nights, and hard work. Nearby, under a black umbrella, a man watched quietly. Professor Tade Benson, one of her lecturers, had seen the entire scene. His face showed concern, but he didn't walk over. Not yet. Chioma didn't notice him. She stood still, surrounded by laughter and celebration that no longer felt like it belonged to her. Her eyes filled with tears as she whispered softly to herself, "I did it. I really did it." But there was no one left to hear her. Only the sound of rain and distant cheers as she stood, a lonely figure in a sea of joy. That we learned that Chioma's journey wasn't ordinary. She grew up in a small, quiet village in Anambra State. Life there was simple but hard. Her father, Chief Nwosu, once ran a small business that often failed. Each time it did, his anger grew, not only at the world but also at his family. When Chioma started showing interest in school, he saw it as a waste of money. He believed education was for boys. To him, girls were meant to marry early and help at home. "Why should I spend my savings on a girl?" he would often say. But Chioma had dreams that went far beyond her father's small shop and dusty village roads. From a young age, she loved books. She would sit under the mango tree near their house, reading anything she could find. Her teachers noticed her brilliance and encouraged her to apply for scholarships. When she finally won one to study at the University of Lagos, her father refused to pay for transport. He told her to forget about school. One night, she sat in their small room, holding her admission letter, crying. Her mother, Mama Nwosu, quietly entered the room and placed a small brown envelope in her hand. "It's not much," she whispered, "but it will get you there. Go and make something of yourself." That night, Chioma promised herself that she would never depend on anyone who didn't believe in her dreams. Flashbacks of her struggles came in pieces, her father shouting, "You're not my son," when she refused to stay home, her mother sneaking her transport money under her pillow, her long nights of studying by candlelight while others slept. Even at university, life wasn't easy. She worked part-time as a tutor, teaching younger students to earn money. Sometimes, she even sent a little home to help her mother, though she knew her father would never appreciate it. Now back in the present, the celebration on campus was over. The sun had set, and the rain had started again. The once busy university grounds were almost empty. Chioma stood under a tree, her gown damp, her shoes soaked. She had no idea how to get home. Her phone battery was dead, her bag was light, and she had no cash left. Everyone else had left with their families or friends, laughing and cheering. Her roommate, Amaka, spotted her from across the parking lot. "Chioma," she called out, running toward her. "Come, I can drop you off." Chioma shook her head quickly, forcing a small smile. "No, don't worry. I'll be fine." "Are you sure?" Amaka asked, worried. "Yes," Chioma replied softly, even though her voice trembled. "I'll find my way." Amaka hesitated, but when Chioma waved her away gently, she left. Chioma didn't want pity. She was too ashamed to admit she had nowhere to go. The rain grew heavier. She walked toward the faculty building and sat on the concrete steps, hugging her certificate close to her chest to keep it dry. Water dripped from her gown and hair, but she didn't care. She just sat there, staring into the dark, feeling the pain of everything. Years of struggle, her father's rejection, her mother's silence. Quiet tears rolled down her face. That was when she heard footsteps behind her. She looked up and saw Professor Tade Benson, holding an umbrella. He looked surprised to see her still there. "Miss Nwosu," he said gently, stepping closer. "Why are you still here?" Chioma quickly wiped her face and stood up, embarrassed. They left me, sir. But I'll find my way." Dr. Benson looked at her for a moment, then shook his head. "No," he said softly. "Not tonight." He stretched out his hand, holding his car keys. "You fought too hard to end this day in the rain." For a moment, Chioma just stared at him, unsure what to say. She wanted to refuse, but something in his calm, kind eyes made her nod slowly. That night, under the falling rain, a door quietly opened in her life, one that would lead her somewhere she never expected. Dr. Benson took Chioma to a small eatery not far from the university. It was a quiet place, with the smell of jollof rice and fried plantain filling the air. The rain was still falling outside, tapping softly on the roof. Chioma sat by the window, her gown still damp, her hair sticking to her face. She looked tired, not just from the long day, but from everything she had carried inside for years. Dr. Benson ordered food for both of them. When the plate of rice and chicken arrived, Chioma ate slowly, quietly. She hadn't eaten all day. Dr. Benson watched her for a while, then spoke gently. "So, Chioma," he said, "what are your plans now that you've graduated?" She paused, her spoon halfway to her mouth. "I was supposed to start an internship next week," she said softly, "at a public health center in Lagos." "That sounds good," Dr. Benson said. "So why do you sound unsure?" Chioma looked down. "My father doesn't want me to stay here," she replied. "He wants me to come home and help him in his shop. He said education for a girl is a waste." Dr. Benson sighed, shaking his head. "You've worked too hard to stop now." Chioma gave a small, tired smile. "I've tried, sir. I even applied for scholarships abroad." But her voice trailed off. Dr. Benson noticed a group of old envelopes peeking out of her bag. He pointed to them. "What's that?" She hesitated. "Just rejection letters," she said quietly. "I applied to universities in Canada and the UK. They all said no." Dr. Benson reached for one of the envelopes. It looked worn and slightly torn at the edges. "May I see it?" he asked. Chioma nodded weakly. He held it up, wiping a small drop of water off the corner. His eyes narrowed as he read the return address. "This one, from St. Mary's University, Canada?" Chioma nodded again. "Yes, that one came last week. It looked like the others. I didn't even open it properly. I just saw the first line and put it away." Dr. Benson frowned. "Are you sure? That university only sends physical letters for one reason, acceptance." Chioma looked confused. "No, sir. I'm sure it's another rejection." He handed it to her. "Open it. Let's check." With shaky fingers, Chioma tore open the envelope completely this time. The paper inside was slightly crumpled but still readable. Her eyes moved quickly over the words, and then froze. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. "Read it aloud," Dr. Benson said softly. Chioma swallowed hard. "Dear Miss Nwosu," she began, her voice trembling, "we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected for a full scholarship to pursue a master's degree in public health at St. Mary's University, Canada." Her hands began to shake. She looked up at Dr. Benson, eyes wide in disbelief. "This can't be real," she whispered. Dr. Benson reached across the table, gently taking the letter from her hands. He read it carefully, line by line, and then nodded with a smile. "It's real, Chioma. It's signed and sealed." They're offering to cover everything, tuition, housing, even travel costs. Tears welled in her eyes. But I thought it was another rejection. I didn't even. He interrupted softly. Sometimes, when life beats us down, we stop expecting good news. She nodded, speechless. Her heart was racing. She had dreamed of studying abroad, of becoming someone who could make real change. But she never thought it would actually happen. Dr. Benson looked at the date on the letter and frowned slightly. There's a problem, he said. The deadline to respond is next week. Chioma's eyes widened. Next week? Yes, he said. But don't worry. We'll find a way to make it happen. Chioma sat there, still staring at the letter as tears rolled down her cheeks. A mix of relief, disbelief, and pure joy. For the first time in a long while, she felt hope rising inside her again. That night, as the rain poured outside and thunder rolled in the distance, Chioma held the letter close to her chest. It wasn't just a piece of paper. It was her future, her freedom, her chance to start again. And sitting across from her, Dr. Benson smiled quietly, knowing that this single letter had just changed everything. The good news quickly met a hard truth. Chioma had no passport, no money, and no one to support her in getting a visa or flight ticket. The scholarship covered everything once she arrived in Canada, but getting there was the real problem. For days, she tried to stay hopeful, reading the letter over and over. But each time she looked at the part that said, "Respond within 2 weeks," her heart sank a little more. She finally gathered courage to call home. The phone rang several times before her father picked up. His voice was cold. "Papa," she began softly. "I got a scholarship. They want me to study in Canada." There was silence on the line. Then her father's deep voice came through, sharp and angry. "You will not disgrace me by running abroad," he said. "Come home and work for your brother. You've done enough school. Papa, please, this is a big opportunity." He hung up before she could finish. Chioma sat on the edge of her bed, holding the phone to her ear long after the call ended. She wanted to cry but felt too tired for tears. A few days later, she heard a soft knock at her hostel door. When she opened it, her mother was standing there, wrapped in a faded shawl, looking around nervously. "Manga," Chioma whispered, shocked. Her mother smiled weakly. "I had to see you. Your father doesn't know I came." She opened her small purse and took out an envelope. Inside was 20,000 Nigerian nairas. "Mama, no, you need this. Take it," her mother insisted, pressing it into her hand. "That's all I can do. Please don't tell him." Chioma hugged her tightly, tears finally spilling down her face. "Thank you, Mama." Her mother stroked her hair gently. "My daughter, don't give up. One day, your father will see what I already see in you." After her mother left, Chioma sat for a long time staring at the money. It wasn't much, but it was something, a sign that at least one person still believed in her. Dr. Benson continued to help her quietly. He drove her to the passport office, helped her fill out forms, and even paid some small fees when she didn't have enough. He treated her with kindness, never asking for anything in return. But people began to talk. Some staff members whispered behind his back. Students gossiped too. They said things like, "Why is he spending so much time with her? And maybe she's his new favorite." One afternoon during a staff meeting, the dean, Mr. Ease, laughed loudly and said, "Benson, you're turning your student into a charity case, eh? Maybe she should call you her sponsor." Some of the other lecturers chuckled. Dr. Benson looked up calmly. "When you see a bright student drowning in circumstances, you don't walk away," he said quietly. The room fell silent. After the meeting, he sat alone in his office, tired but determined. He wrote several emails to the scholarship board, explaining Chioma's situation. He begged them to extend the deadline so she could get her documents ready. At the same time, Chioma knew she couldn't just wait. She needed to earn something. Anything. She found a small roadside restaurant that needed help washing dishes. The pay was poor, but she accepted it. Every morning, she tied her hair, put on old clothes, and worked until late at night. Her hands became rough from soap and water, and sometimes she went home with blisters. The restaurant owner often shouted at her. Customers ignored her, sometimes mocking her accent or her slow pace. But Chioma didn't respond. She just kept washing, one plate at a time, saving every naira she earned. There were nights she went to bed hungry, because she refused to spend the little she had. Other nights, she stayed awake reading about Canada on her phone, imagining what her life could be like if she made it there. Dr. Benson checked on her when he could. One evening, he stopped by the restaurant quietly, watching her work from afar. She didn't notice him at first. She was focused, scrubbing plates in a corner, her clothes wet, her face tired but determined. He smiled sadly. "You have more strength than most people I know," he whispered to himself before leaving. Weeks passed. Chioma finally managed to save enough to start her passport process. It wasn't easy, long queues, rude officers, endless waiting, but she kept going. Sometimes, when it got too hard, she would sit on her bed, holding the scholarship letter close and whispering, "I can't give up now." Her classmates moved on with their lives. Some started jobs, others traveled, but Chioma's days were still filled with uncertainty. Yet she never lost her will to fight. Dr. Benson's emails finally paid off. The scholarship board replied, saying they had granted an extension for her acceptance. When he told Chioma the news, her face lit up for the first time in weeks. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice breaking. "You don't have to thank me," he replied. "You earned this. I'm just making sure the world sees it." But even with the new deadline, Chioma knew time was still against her. The money she had wasn't enough for all the paperwork and medical tests required. She worked harder than ever, pushing herself every day. Her body grew weaker, but her spirit stayed strong. Through rejection, hunger, and humiliation, she kept one thought alive in her heart, that someday she would make it out, and all this pain would mean something. And though she didn't know it yet, her struggle was about to take a turn. One that would test her faith, her pride, and her strength more than ever before. Chioma was washing plates at the restaurant when her phone rang. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, but she wiped her hands quickly and answered. "Hello. Good afternoon," the voice said politely. "This is from the University Scholarship Board. We're sorry to inform you that your scholarship offer has been withdrawn. Your documents were not fully processed before the deadline." Chioma froze. "What?" she whispered. "It's out of our hands now," the voice continued. "You can reapply next year." Then the line went dead. Her knees went weak. She leaned against the wall, her chest tightening. All the hard work, all the hope, all the sleepless nights gone. She sank to the floor and burst into tears. Within minutes, she grabbed her bag and ran into the rain, her heart pounding. She didn't even notice the people staring as she rushed to the university. When she reached Dr. Benson's office, she was soaked from head to toe. "Sir," she cried, bursting through the door. Dr. Benson was already on the phone, his face tense, his voice sharp. "No. You cannot penalize a student for what her parents failed to do," he shouted. "She met every requirement. The delay was from your end." Chioma stood frozen, her tears mixing with the rain on her face. He looked up and saw her, then held up a hand to signal her to wait. His voice grew even stronger. "You're denying a brilliant student because of bureaucracy? This is unacceptable." He slammed the phone down after a few moments, breathing heavily. Then he turned to her. "Chioma, sit," he said softly. She sat down, her hands trembling. "They said they canceled it," she whispered. "Sir, what am I going to do now?" Dr. Benson sighed deeply and rubbed his temples. "You're not going to do anything. I'll handle this." Chioma looked confused. "But sir, why are you doing all this for me?" He paused for a moment, then said quietly, "Because you deserve it." He stood up, grabbed his briefcase, and said, "Wait here." Without another word, he walked out of his office, his steps fast and determined. Inside the dean's office, the tension was thick. Mr. Ease, the dean, was seated behind his desk, looking bored. "Ah, Benson," he said with a smirk. "I heard about your student. It's unfortunate, but rules are rules." Dr. Benson placed the letter from the scholarship board on the table. "Unfortunate? This faculty failed her. We failed her. Do you even know who recommended her for that scholarship?" The dean frowned. "The board chose her, didn't they?" Dr. Benson's voice rose, filled with emotion. "No. I nominated her months ago. I've been following her work quietly. That girl is one of the brightest minds we've had in years. And now, because of a missing stamp, you want to take her future away?" The room went silent. A few staff members nearby stopped what they were doing, shocked by his outburst. Dr. Benson continued, his tone breaking slightly. "Do you know how many students like her we've lost? Brilliant minds who just needed a chance. But because they're poor, because they have no connections, they get ignored. I won't let it happen again." For a long moment no one spoke. Even the dean looked uncomfortable. Then, quietly, he said, "All right, Benson. I'll reach out to the board myself." But Dr. Benson didn't wait. He walked out of the office, went straight to his car, and called the scholarship office again. This time his tone was calm but firm. He explained everything. How Chioma had met all the requirements, how the delay wasn't her fault, and how she had no family support. By the end of the call, the representative promised to review the case. Later that evening, the rain had stopped. Chioma sat outside Dr. Benson's office, her clothes still damp, her eyes tired from crying. She was too afraid to hope again. Then a delivery man appeared, asking for her name. "Miss Chioma Nwosu?" "Yes," she said, standing up slowly. He handed her a brown envelope. "From the scholarship board," he said before walking away. Her heart raced. She tore it open quickly. Inside was a new acceptance letter. Her scholarship had been reinstated. But there was more. A bank draft for her visa and flight costs was neatly tucked in, along with a short handwritten note. It read, "You earned this. I only made sure the world didn't miss it. To be." Chioma stared at the note, her hands shaking. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She looked around for Dr. Benson, but he wasn't there. His office door was closed. She knocked softly, but there was no answer. Through the small glass window, she could see him sitting at his desk, head bowed, lost in thought. She wanted to thank him, but something stopped her. Instead, she smiled, a small, trembling smile filled with gratitude. For the first time in a long while, the weight in her chest lifted. She held the letter close to her heart and whispered, "Thank you, sir." That night, as she walked back to her hostel, the city lights reflected on the wet road. Everything felt different, brighter, calmer. The world that had once shut her out had finally opened a door. And though she didn't know it yet, this was not just the end of her struggle. It was the beginning of her victory. 2 months later, Chioma stood at the airport, holding her small travel bag close. Her heart beat fast as she looked around one last time. The announcement for her flight to Canada echoed through the terminal. She couldn't believe it was real. After everything, the tears, the hunger, the shame, she was finally leaving to start a new life. Her parents were not there. Her father had refused to say goodbye. Her mother had only whispered on the phone the night before, "Go, my daughter. God will walk with you." But someone was there. Dr. Benson stood a few steps away, his hands in his pockets, a soft smile on his face. "You made it," he said quietly. Chioma nodded, fighting back tears. "I wouldn't have if not for you, sir." He shook his head gently. "No, Chioma. You would have. You just needed one open door." She smiled, tears filling her eyes. "Thank you for opening it." He chuckled softly. "Now go. Don't keep the pilot waiting." They both laughed. It was a small, warm laugh that carried so much history, of struggle, of faith, of victory. As she walked toward the boarding gate, she turned back one last time. Dr. Benson raised his hand in a quiet wave. She waved back, then disappeared into the long hallway that led to her new beginning. Weeks later, in a quiet house in Enugu, Chioma's mother opened the mailbox and found a postcard. Her hands trembled as she read the front. A picture of a smiling Chioma standing in front of a large university building covered in snow. On the back, written in Chioma's neat handwriting, were the words, "Tell Papa, I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful for what he taught me, strength." Tears rolled down her mother's cheeks as she walked into the living room and handed the postcard to her husband. He didn't say a word. He just stared at it for a long time. The picture showed their daughter happy, confident, free. Something inside him softened. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, he went quietly to the sitting room. On a small table sat a framed photo of baby Chioma, chubby cheeks and bright eyes, smiling at the camera. He placed the postcard beside it carefully, his fingers trembling. For a moment, he just stood there, looking at the two pictures, one of the little girl he once carried in his arms, and one of the young woman she had become. He sighed deeply. "You did well, my daughter," he whispered. It was a soft, private confession, one no one else would hear. Outside, the night was quiet. A gentle breeze passed through the curtains, carrying peace into the room. And somewhere across the ocean, Chioma looked out of her dorm window, watching the snow fall softly. She smiled to herself, whispering, "I did it." It wasn't pride. It was peace. She had walked through pain and found purpose. She had turned rejection into strength. And though miles away from home, she finally felt what she had always longed for: freedom, dignity, and hope. Chioma, now in Canada, sits quietly in a bright lecture hall filled with students from different countries. The room buzzes with soft chatter, notebooks flipping, and laptops opening. She takes a deep breath, still amazed at how far she's come. The door opens and the professor walks in. The class settles down. Chioma looks up and freezes. It's Dr. Benson. Her eyes widen in disbelief. He's dressed smartly, with the same calm smile she remembers. He glances around the class, then their eyes meet. For a brief moment, time seems to stop. No words are spoken. No need for them. Their eyes say everything: pride, respect, and gratitude. She smiles softly. He nods once, almost like saying, "You did it." As he begins his lecture, Chioma looks out the window. Snow falls gently outside, covering everything in white. She remembers that rainy convocation day in Lagos, standing alone, humiliated, broken. Now it's snow instead of rain. Cold, but pure. A sign of new beginnings. Her voice plays in the background. Sometimes, family is not who raises you, but who refuses to watch you fall. The camera slowly pulls back, from her seat, to the classroom, to the window, until all we see is the snow falling softly, peaceful and endless. Her journey, from rain to snow, from pain to purpose. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Sparkling Heart. If Chioma's story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional stories. See you in the next one. Bye. Snowflake 2 Hearts.